were true, then you should probably, if there was no other weapon than the Javelins to stop those big Russian T-72 tanks, if that were true, then you should probably keep the Javelins there in Ukraine. You should probably deploy them. What's happened since those Javelins went there? $170,000 a crack. $170,000 a crack, even more expensive than those Stinger missiles. We have the hard evidence with UAE and this Ukrainian Business Council that we've talked about. Remember, this is the one that has the same office, 555 Washington Street, just north of the White House there with Burisma. They share office space. That's how closely linked these two things are. That's how closely Cofer Black and John Brennan, both of Kissinger associates, that's how closely they're linked to this. That's how thinly veiled this CIA guns rinse is. And this is what you can watch on the replay. And then finally, I'll just talk a little bit about the nuclear plan that was being pushed. Remember, the next episode of my series, the Webb Report, is going to be about Flynn, fighting Mike Flynn, and it's going to be, E was about energy. If you haven't seen Energy, go out and watch that one. It's very short, 5 minutes, but it is all about energy. And fighting has been, again, Mike Flynn has been in all these energy places with the U.S. military in Afghanistan for a pipeline there, especially with pipelines. And also in Iraq, in this conflict area. Also in Eastern Africa, same conflict area. So Flynn is a very interesting character, just looked at through the lens of energy, following energy. And again, I'm probably going to start the episode with the IP3 deal, the ACE deal. If you didn't know anything else about Mike Flynn, you would have him with a Blackberry in his hand, as Trump's walking down the transom to deliver his speech for, his acceptance speech at the inauguration, and he's texting someone. Who is he texting? Just a natural question. It's a very big event, first time in history, etc. He was a very big part of it. Who's he texting? And he's texting a guy named Alex Copson. For that reason alone, it becomes important to know who Alex Copson is, to really start unraveling this thing. And Alex Copson is this energy guy who's had 3 kind of wacky proposals to store nuclear waste. And he's also proposing this 45 reactor plan, $45 billion, about $1 billion a reactor for the Middle East, a Marshall Plan for the Middle East. And what it seems like is that all the people that are coming to Washington now, Dana Rohrabacher just came to Washington a couple of days ago to meet with Trump and Trump Jr., they're all being briefed on this plan. And Ed Royce from California, Republican representative on the Foreign Affairs Committee, is being briefed on this plan. So it's definitely finding its way to Capitol Hill. There's no secrets here. It's being presented in September of 2016. So there's no secret to this, that Flynn's pushing this plan, and he's pushing this thing with Alex Copson. Now, is he doing it as an informant? Is he doing it to try to entrap Trump? Or is he doing it because he thinks this is what he needs to do to get in the club, into the energy club? We really don't know yet. It'd be nice to know, really, at what point Mike Flynn kind of started communicating with Kislyak and using the Oconus lures and all these types of parties that were going on at Kislyak's residence. We don't know the answer yet. I looked at my Flynn videos, going through them. I've done 161 videos. That's a lot of research for every one of those videos. Still don't have the answers. Still, the jury is out on Mike Flynn, literally, still. So we're going to keep following that. Again, a lot of personal interaction, a lot of talk with Robin Gritz, who is one hop away from Mike Flynn. Talked and interviewed Tony Schaefer, who's a long lifetime friend of Mike Flynn, at least through the military and so forth. And we need to get to that answer. But there is one interesting tidbit that I remember, and I discovered in my research today, is Robert Mueller's law firm of Wilmer Hale prepares a job offer, an IP3 job offer for Mike Flynn in June of 2016. He only works 1/2 hour. Bob Mueller only works 1/2 hour to basically prepare this job offer letter for Mike Flynn, and Mike Flynn becomes an advisor to IP3 in this 6-month period, this critical last 6 months, up until June 31st was when the offer expires. That of course, is the same day that the Sergei Kislyak text exchanges occur. And that is the same day or a day later, that all the diplomats get thrown out, all the Oconus lures get thrown out of the country. Okay, we have Sidney Powell and Mike Flynn's attorneys saying it's about Oconee slurs, it's about secure Blackberries. And also we have Mike Flynn flying on that energy airline, that conflict energy airline owned by Kolomoisky, the same guy who's getting the money from Covert Black, the $1.7 billion tranches, and Vindmans and Fiona Hill. Very tight group. So I went back over what did all Bob Mueller do is take the plan that they actually proposed the year before in Iran. The one consistent thing I've seen in this series is if you just take their crimes, if you take the Mueller crimes, all you need to do literally to figure out how they're doing their lures and their entrapments is literally go to the front page of all their stuff, just change it from our plan in the Middle East, cross out our plan, our Marshall plan, our Marshall nuclear plan in the Middle East, cross that out and put Putin's plan in the Middle East. And that's exactly what it was named. It was named Trump, even though Trump never saw it, Trump, Putin, Marshall Plan for the Middle East. I doubt Vladimir Putin knew at all about this. It was with a Ukrainian company called Turbotom. There's some other interesting companies in there in this proposal, like BWXT. This is why we go to Strongville. This is why we go to interview all the people, go to all the plants and so forth, because we know BWXT is a big part of this. We know the nuclear waste processing at the Piketown, Ohio plant is a very big part of this story. Are they reprocessing waste with some secret technology, Silex laser separation, that allows them to make money from waste? You know, we don't know the answer to that yet. But we have strange things with the port of Canaveral and strange things with the port of Wilmington, where we're having Russian generals and their UAE partners and Iranian nuclear partners take control of U.S. ports. Is that to ship this material? Is that to supply these nuclear power plants, these 45 nuclear power plants that are already built? The deal is already done. First plant in UAE, I believe, was 2012. So in order to get the $150 billion for Iran, did they push this plan through in 2015? Again, on these secret Blackberries, these 123 Blackberries, in order to get that money from the U.S. Treasury. And now they're basically taking the whole Iran nuclear, changing the cover sheet, adding 1 year, adding Trump's name to it, add Putin's name to it, and then release it to the great reporters on Capitol Hill. But it certainly appears that way. It certainly seems that way. So again, there's an interesting company called Sea Launch, also in the proposal, which does sea platforms for rockets. And I remember, again, we have all of Flynn Intel Group that forms right after Mike Flynn has his meeting in Cambridge. They're all pushing this nuclear plant. Bijan Kian in our story is pushing this plan to Dana Rohrabacher and Ed Royce. They both leave Congress after this, by the way. So why are they pushing this plan? It seems like we're using the World Bank money to do pipelines and infrastructure, water projects, build camps, et cetera, the kind of industrial infrastructure you need for energy and mining or oil extraction, gas, LNG. And then seems like Bijan Kian is that guy for Dick Cheney and Bechtel and Battelle and BWXT. It just seems like everything is being very lightly rinsed in patriotic terms on the bulwark against Russia on the front line in Ukraine to get the American taxpayers to pour more money into this, and it's immediately diverted by the Covert Blacks and the John Brennans of the world to energy projects. So Flynn, I'm not going to look at Flynn's whole career, but I'm going to start chapter 6 in my book Webb Report with just starting it with Mike Flynn. If you didn't know anything else about him, and he's texting this guy from ACU, and he's texting this Alex Copson, and this Alex Copson has been involved in nuclear a long time. In 2000, he wanted to store nuclear waste in 2000 in Russia. In 2008, he wanted to do it in Guam. And finally, in 2016 or 17, they get a plant in New Mexico. And then seemingly this connection to Urenco and Urenco's cutout transportation company, which is Transport Logistics. Again, a trial that's going on right now. Wanted to find out as much as I could at the trial. before I wrote the Flint chapter. A lot of the things have been confirmed already, but I would like to hear Mark Lambert's testimony first before writing the Flint chapter. We'll see how that goes. I think I can, after 180 videos, I think I can write the Flint chapter now. But the big news here today is not even a couple of months after the Javelins get shipped, you know, an article came out saying, hey, these aren't being deployed. There is no threat. There is no bulwark of Putin about ready to invade with little green men in Ukraine. They're not even leaving Kiev. They're at an end of a runway, much like the Jeff Epstein's runway in Columbus. They're ready to be flown out to Africa. Remember Silkway Airlines and Bijan Kian? All the illegal diplomatic flights were all weapons. Who knows if there were drugs coming back the other way to pay for it, but that's certainly how. It doesn't look good, but Fiona Hill, Vindman, it's becoming more and more transparent what the game is. It's using the kind of the sympathy card with Ukraine, and then the Covert Blacks of the world, basically it's create some foundation, spoons and forks for somebody, and then add the knife in, and basically it's a covert weapons shipment program for all these resource plays in Central Asia, Middle East, and Africa. So I'll leave it there. I did want to comment, I did see Kevin Shipp and this Bill Binney thing, this Bill Binney and Kevin Shipp going after Bill Binney and going after Kurt Wiebe and going after some of these Ed Binney several times. And I don't like to see this happen, this kind of fighting. And again, I think it comes with one side saying Dennis Montgomery is a fraud. That's Kevin Shipp. I think everybody says Dennis Montgomery's a fraud. And then the other side saying, well, we're just using our technical knowledge and talking about what was on the hard drives that Dennis Montgomery had. If you don't remember, it was a listening station out in Las Vegas that he had created for Cheney. And he was listening in on all of Cheney's enemies. It was kind of an enemies program, an enemies listening program. Dennis Montgomery, a longtime CIA guy, doing this for Scooter Libby and Cheney. And so Binney was asked, along with Thomas Drake and Kurt Wiebe, to evaluate what was on these hard drives that were there. And they said, that's raw collection. I'm pretty sure if you ask Tom Wiebe or Bill Binney or any of those guys, they'd say, that's raw collection. I know what raw collection looks like. It's to and from. It and said the part that is confused, and I hate to see people that are such experts not have a conceptual handle of actually what's going on. Software Dynasty of Conversations, a conversation database that was moved to Fort Washington, a Navy AI project. That's where they got the information. If you plug the right selectors in to the system, you're going to get all your enemies. The people over there at Navy Fort Washington don't know it's Supreme Court judges and so forth. They don't know that it's different senators. They don't know what it is. Dennis Montgomery is telling the truth. It was a collection system against enemies, but it was for Dick Cheney. That's the part they're leaving out. And again, it's for this energy. It's to control this energy. It's to control these contracts. It's to control these treaties in Congress. If you read the book Angler about Dick Cheney, you'll really get a good concept. And look at, if you don't believe that, look at all the people that are planted in the Trump campaign that are acolytes of Scooter Libby, who is an acolyte in turn of Dick Cheney. Carter Page. Again, energy. Total background in energy. Papadopoulos. Total background in energy. East Med Pipeline. Paul Manafort. Weapons and energy. Mostly weapons, but some diplomacy, but again, energy policy. Okay? Mike Flynn. A fledgling person that's being brought into the energy market. That he's, like I said, it goes back to the tell-all for me is Mike Flynn writing on his Blackberry, good to go, to an energy guy who's had his whole career in nuclear energy as Trump is walking down the transom. If you don't believe this is about energy, I don't think that's correct. If there's one photograph that captures it all together, it would be that moment where Mike Flynn's texting. Now, it could be that it was a part of trapping somebody. It could be spy traps. It could be all these other things. But we know it's about energy. We know it's about the IP3 program. We know it's about those nuclear reactors. We know it's about nuclear waste because that's what Copson's been doing for the last 20 years. right? So we know when we go to places like BWXT, or we go to places like the uranium-1 trial, or the megatons to megawatts trial, really, continued right into uranium-1. We know we're in the right place. That's how the metadata, people don't connect the dots on that, but that's why we know we're in the right place. If Mike Flynn wasn't texting Alex Copson as Trump's walking down to oath of office, the biggest moment in the administration's history, right? If he wasn't texting an energy guy, I wouldn't be going to Piketon. I wouldn't be going to the uranium-1 trial. I know they're going to be related. It's going to be related to BWXT. It's going to be, I'm spending my time and where I'm focused. So I didn't miss anything because I wanted to kind of do a weekly wrap-up. People are talking about Bob Levison finally being outed as a CIA, doing a CIA project. I know how hard this is going to be for people to believe. But if you're Dick Cheney, deal with Aramco, the Saudis. You deal with both sides. When you get the oil out of that water, it doesn't say Saudi. It doesn't say Shia. It doesn't say Sunni. You don't care. You have to have channels to both, right? If you don't, I didn't know Alex Copson was related to George Papadopoulos, but I heard Papadopoulos was at the wedding of, I want to say, someone in Egypt or in Libya. I can't remember. But I believe both of those guys, Papadopoulos and Page, were involved in weapons shipping to Libya. No oversight on weapons. We focus so much work because if you, I guess, or because this Dark Eve was a key person in 2017 to getting on Ajad a lot of the reactor of the centrifuges. You're seeing that those being advertised a lot now. The IR-6, the IR-2 before that, the IR-4 before that. It's the same time they were taking down Gaddafi. It's the same time Gaddafi was giving up his centrifuges. Did they cross-ship it straight over to Iran? Again, think about it. You're Dick Cheney. You're going to use the nuclear car in order to have them buy you into the oil and gas, right? Hey, this is a better form of energy. It's more secure and militarily. It's the energy density is 10,000 times the fuel you've got here. We'll give you the nukes, the nuclear energy, if you cut us into a joint venture on the oil and gas. That's what happened. That's what happened with Oriental Kish Oil, if you look at the Cheney case with Iran. And that's what happened with this Aramco deal that we're talking about now with UAE and the 45 Sunni nations. It was actually, I think it was 60 reactors when it's all said and done. 40 also in this IP. And you want encrypted communications so they can't say, hey, let's go over and meet at this place. You would load these shelf and you just rack mount them straight into a tank or whatever, these nuclear power plants. Obviously, you need a green zone. Obviously, they're susceptible to terrorism and so forth, but why Curtis Wright is in this? And then sea launch. Why is sea platforms for launching missiles, unless obviously you're going to do it off some kind of oil platform, maybe you're putting the nukes out in the middle of, the Strait of Hormuz, and you need a launch platform for anybody coming close to your offshore site. It's just one of those things that you just never I never could quite understand why sea launch was involved in the IP3 plan. And I have a similar thing with Curtis Wright, unless they're talking to little mini submarines or something. It's hard to understand why they're in a nuclear proposal from Turbotom, this Ukrainian company. Again, I mention these names, sometimes don't connect all the dots, just putting the dots on the board so we can think about them and then connect them later. Don't have all the dots right away, but I look at these things as anomalies and say, why is that there? So we're going to leave it right there. Thanks, everybody. This went a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure I covered a lot of different topics that people have asked me about. The other one was, Bill Binney. He had mentioned that it's impossible, regarding the DNC leaks, he had mentioned it's impossible to move that amount of data that was in these emails over the network. And I completely agree. I'm not saying that if it was Bettina over at the DNC headquarters on 1717 at the transition offices, or somehow she got into the DNC offices, or somehow somebody else, Imran, made the thumb drive for her and gave it to her, or however they did it. I'm not saying it wasn't a thumb drive. I'm completely agreeing with Bill Binney. But what I am saying is they tried to entrap Julian Assange. They've been trying to entrap him since 2011 with Bradley Manning. So this is nothing new. They try to trap him about every election cycle. And it's usually to cover another real leaker, another real whistleblower. And the real whistleblower was Eric Braverman. There's no doubt about this. We have the John Podesta letter saying it's Eric Braverman. And Eric Braverman, I know, was going to Bruce Ratner's office at WikiLeaks in New York. That's why I keep going back to Trevor Fitzgibbon and talking about people who had access to Bruce Ratner's New York office at WikiLeaks, because that's where Eric Braverman went. Eric Braverman did not want indications that he went to Bruce Ratner's office. That's why Margaret Ratner going over to see Julian Assange, again in this critical 6-month period or 5-month period toward the end of the election, is really important. Isn't it interesting that the same person, the wife or the sister of Bruce Ratner, is going and making multiple overtures to Julian Assange? It came out in the trial. Again, it was vindicated by the trial information that she set up Randy Credico's August 26th meeting. She had a better relationship with Julian Assange because Julian Assange knew Bruce Ratner for a long time and trusted the sister. Julian Assange being very careful about who he sees because he's been entrapped before. Wouldn't it be smart to put in somebody and to befriend Margaret Ratner like a Trevor Fitzgibbon? Somebody who could raise money for the fund? You know, and here you have somebody approach you that's raising money for you. You're like, oh, hey, you're on my side. And then I, all the while, am using your network, your computer network, to vector those emails and see what you have. What did Braverman give to Ratner? Did he give the information about Hillary and Libya? If you remember, all the discussion in the courtroom recently with Roger Stone, with Randy Credico, with Steve Bannon didn't talk about it as much, but is all about Hillary and Libya. It's all about Hillary and Libya. If you wanted to cover that up, if you were a part of all that and you made all that money, I think 3 years ago I did a thing on Libya. If you made the $265 billion or $235 billion or whatever it was, you don't want that coming out. If you went and got all these spies in Congress, in the House and the Senate, you arranged for the vote to go your way, and you were able to engineer an overthrow of Libya, you were able to take the profits and then reinvest it in commercial real estate in New York with Paul Manafort and all these other revolutions and all these energy projects like East Med Pipeline. If you had been able to do that, do you really want Eric Braverman becoming a superstar? What's your choice with Eric Braverman? One choice is to immediately arrest him, which is going to look funny with the Clinton Foundation investigation going on. The other one is let him keep going to Bruce Ratner's place. We'll set up an intercept. He's sending it over to John Jones on the other side of the river, on the other side of the pond, in London. We'll let him keep bringing over the emails. Let's see what he's got. That way we can figure out who is the leak. How is Braverman getting these emails? I still say it's Justin Cooper who was feeling cheated by the Clinton Foundation and feeling ousted, and that was the technical person that was getting Braverman the emails. But go ahead and accept all the emails. But we have to now convince Julian Assange that we are the whistleblower. And that's where Seth Rich seems to come in. I wanted to believe Seth Rich was that guy that put all those emails on the wire, but the FBI story doesn't make sense. They watch this person, supposedly over a 9-month period, put emails into a Dropbox to Julian Assange, or however, email them to Julian Assange over a 9-month period. They call the help desk a couple of times. They don't get through and they quit. Adrian Hawkins just quits. Doesn't follow up, doesn't walk the 2 blocks or 3 blocks over to the DNC from FBI headquarters, Washington Field Office headquarters, and say, hey, you're being hacked. 9 months, they let the hack go on. Doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if you think of it as an operation. It makes sense if you, remember, Seth Rich wanted $50,000, right? That's an entrapment. That's encouraging Julian Assange into a conspiracy. That's how the FBI works, right? They don't work with, hey, here's all the data. Here's what we did in the investigation of Trump. Here's all the email between Papadopoulos and, all the different folks that were in Crossfire Hurricane. This shows the conspiracy. We'll put it in the Mueller report. No, they hide it all. They make you look at it through a keyhole and try to figure all these things out, right? That's why we're still here trying to figure it out. But Seth Rich was using 8 different emails, sending little chunks, teasers, to say, hey, I've got the goods on Hillary. Enter into conspiracy with me. Then they're going to try to tie that off with Manafort or somebody close to the Clinton campaign, if they could get Stone close to Trump or whatever, but then tie that conspiracy. And it didn't work. Didn't work. Julian Assange got wise to it, so Seth Rich disappears, and they try it again. That's why they have to try it again. They need a new intermediary. They need a new lure. That's Margaret Ratner. That's who they used. We now know that what I've been saying about Margaret Ratner and Bruce Ratner, John Jones connection, is true. We know that was the new intermediary they chose after the Seth Rich electronic ruse didn't work. The electronic ruse didn't work because Julian Assange had been entrapped once before by Bradley Manning. He'd been given the phone in the Reykjavik airport with the Jabber account on it, the hot phone, and it was all in a tizzy because he was getting supposedly interrogated, shook down, maybe arrested by the State Department officials. So he took the hot phone. He didn't do that again. He was very careful. He only let in people that he trusted. That's why Margaret Ratner was used. Now, I'm not saying that Trevor is a conspirator. I'm not saying Margaret Ratner is a conspirator. But I'm saying they had access to the network where Braverman was going with the emails. And immediately that makes, and again, we've been saying this for 3 years with Bruce Ratner to John Jones, they all die. Everyone with knowledge of the real communications and what really occurred with the Braverman emails is dead. If you think about it, John Jones, dead. Bruce Ratner, dead. Pushed in front of a train, John Jones, during this period of time. Trevor McFadden in September when they found out he knew something, dead. Eric Braven, almost dead. I hate to say it, but you got to follow the blood trail. If you follow the blood trail, that's probably what really happened. Not this fake thing, which is, you look all over the place for Seth Rich's footprints, and they've got crime scene photos at the wrong street, and nobody has an autopsy report, and nobody has a death certificate, and nobody has any film, any cameras of him making a 50-minute walk through the middle of Washington, D.C., the most cammed up city in the United States. For some reason, for a low-level murder, street-level murder, the FBI confiscates his laptop and his phone. To me, the only reason that FBI would want to confiscate his laptop and his phone is because if he was trying to entrap Julian Assange. And they wanted to cover that up. And Mueller pretty much admitted that. He said he did not get the emails from Seth Rich. He was trying to discount Seth Rich being the leak so that he would increase the credibility of the Russians actually being the leak. And I do believe the Russians actually got the thumb drives. They did drive out. Konstantin Kilimnik did drive out Butina and the Oconus lures out to the retreats. They did the stuff on the wire back to Kislyak or some intermediary that then took the stuff to GRU. But I am saying that the reason why they didn't put out the phone and put out the laptop is they don't want to show you that it was teaser email. It wasn't the full tranche. Remember, there's 9 tranches of emails that leave Seth Rich. And Adrian Hawkins calls the help desk over at the MIS department and says, you're being hacked, DNC, you're being hacked. How could that happen unless they wanted it to happen? How could that happen? Remember, Adrian Hawkins works for Crowdstrike, Sean Henry. Now I believe he does. And they were good friends at Washington field office. That was a setup. They were trying to cover Braverman. Seth Rich was a reality winner. So I'm not disagreeing with Bill Binney at all about the DNC end of things. Yes, a thumb drive was made. We don't know if it was the person who had the passwords, Imran Awad. We don't know if that was that same person that Nancy Pelosi said, Imran, get in here. No staff. Sounds like Imran's pretty important. Remember, he gets those motorcades going through Pakistan. They used Sethridge. They sent teaser emails just like Bradley Manning sent teaser emails to Julian Assange to try to get him to engage in a conspiracy. That's why these two things are linked. And that's why it's the same team. It's the same FBI team. You can just tell by the signatures of how they run the op. So I'll leave it right there. Covered a lot of stuff. Javelin's going to Libya, I think, is the big news. $170,000 a shot. We had to have these to stop the little green men. You know, we had to, Ukraine was the bulwark against Russia, Putin. You know, it was, he seized Crimea in a 97 or 98% Putin referendum. Usually when you win an election, 96, 97%, they don't say you seized the election. That's called a landslide in the United States, you know. So that's the big story. And then Levison, when Trump put out the $20 million on Levison, Iran had to say this is part of our deal. They had to say that, look, you promised the nuke so you'd get part of the oil and gas. That's why they're coming forward with the big gas field. Now, they want to exploit it. They want to move forward with it. It can't be covert anymore. So we'll leave it there. Went a little bit over today. Let's go Browns, and we'll see you all tomorrow from an undisclosed location. And I'll probably remote in to an undisclosed location to McDuff if he wants to do a show.